What's up everyone, welcome to the video. We're here breaking down the Goodyear 400 at Darlington Raceway, the Lady in Black, the track too tough to tame, whatever you want to call it. We're going this racing on Mother's Day, Sunday, May 14th, around 3 p.m. Eastern, and I cannot wait for this race. I love Darlington, the racetrack. We have a ton of tire wear here, which I think always produces the best style of racing. And plus it's throwback paint scheme weekend, and we have tons of good ones this week. It just adds a little bit of flavor to the race. But as of right now, I'm loving Chase Elliott's, I love Joey Logano's, I love Ryan Newman's, and William Byron's doesn't look too bad either. So you have to comment your favorite one down below, because I'm kind of interested in what you guys think. But anyway, if this is your first time here, what's up? My name is Chris Pennell. I break down NASCAR DFS each and every single week on this channel. You can also find me live on Sunday mornings breaking down the entire slate, answering any questions you may end up having. So I'd love to have you come join. And also, if you guys can do me one small thing in return, if you do enjoy today's free content, that would be leaving a like down below, subscribing to the channel if you are new, and feel free to leave a comment down below, being nice, being mean. I don't really care either way, but I'd love to hear from you. And I must mention really quick, over on Prize Picks and Underdog, they're running a free square on both sites this weekend for Game 7 of the NBA playoffs for the 76ers, facing off versus the Boston Celtics. Over on Prize Picks, Joel Embiid set at 0.5 fantasy points, I believe, and over on Underdog, we have James Harden at 0.5 points. So obviously those are going to hit. So if you are a new user on either site, you can use promo code CPEN to sign up and get a deposit match bonus up to $100 using the link down below in the description or the pinned comment. All right, so moving on to the strategy portion of this video, kind of interesting this weekend because we do have some tire fall off and a good chunk of laps, just under 300 at 293 this week, which quick math in my head, 70% of that equates to roughly around 200 total dominator points. So yeah, that's pretty important this weekend. You're gonna need at least 2 per build, although 2 to 3 is probably going to be the best route to go. And if we're looking at similar tracks this weekend to Darlington, it's kind of tough. It's a very unique track. It's pretty steep and obviously a ton of tire wear. And you kind of have to ride around the wall there to be fast. But I would say Homestead is probably our closest track to it. You can also throw in Kansas from last weekend because I think a lot of the guys that were fast last week are going to be fast once again. You can look at the other intermediates like Las Vegas and also Auto Club earlier this year, which I know isn't as steep as Darlington, but it does have that tire fall off that does have some correlation. And also if you're looking at the tire combination that they're using this weekend, Homestead from last year, and then I believe the same right sides from the intermediates this year. And also if you want to throw in Dover, I keep saying also a lot, but a lot of things to say. Dover is steep as well, and I know it's a concrete surface, so you can't quite compare it, but it's, I think, somewhat in the vicinity that you could look at some track data for. And we did get a good amount of practice data this weekend, which is really nice. Several guys ran 30-lap runs, and a ton of guys ran 10, 15, 20, 25 laps, so it's actually pretty worthwhile looking at the practice data this weekend, which is always nice because it does tell a pretty good story. The one thing I will mention is that we kind of have to stagger the groups a bit because group 2 is obviously a lot slower than group 1, just looking at the overall times, although some guys did kind of rise to the top, but overall their speeds were a bit lower. So if you see a guy that might be a little bit lower than what you'd imagine they would be, make sure you check what group they're in because that might tell the story there. But just looking at practice, guys like Kyle Larson, Martin Truex Jr., William Byron, Chase Elliott, Bubba Wallace did pop off the page right at the top of my head. We'll kind of cover that when we go over the driver-by-driver breakdown portion. And finally, moving on to the driver-by-driver breakdown portion here, I do have to mention one thing first. If you guys want access to all the projections, simulation scores, optimizer, ownership projections, cheat sheets, data sheets, everything you'd ever need, color-coded nice and neat so it's quite easy to follow. Links down below in the description or the pinned comment, and very competitive pricing compared to everybody else. And don't forget the Discord and the article as well. Anyway, let's get into it here. These are not the most up-to-date odds. This was pre-practicing qualifying. DraftKings is where I pulled them from, and they take forever these days. Used to be kind of right after, so they've been very slow about that. I don't think a ton is going to change, but I do think a few guys will definitely be shifting quite a bit. But let's start up top with the man, Kyle Larson, who everyone's betting on this weekend, including myself. Jumped in at plus 600 early in the week, and based off my Twitter and everything I've seen, every article I've read on NASCAR this weekend, I think everyone else jumped on board, but he has now been bet down everywhere. Deservedly so, though, once we get into the numbers. But he's 10-9 on DraftKings, 14K over on FanDuel. He's starting in 7th, and he's probably going to be the car to beat. I know the early numbers in practice are not going to jump off the page. Keep in mind he was in that slower group. But this car got really good as the run went long, and I'm assuming he is really just set up for a long run day over at Darlington, which is the best way to go. And his tire fall off compared to everyone else was very, very good. So as you can see, 1 5-lap, even 10-lap, just not that impressive. But he did have the best 30-lap run in practice, better than guys like Ross Chastain, Chase Elliott, William Byron, Kyle Busch, who all had very fast cars. So Kyle Larson's looking like the guy to beat here, and while he hasn't won at Darlington, does have his runner-up finish, and some of the numbers are skewed, especially from last year because he had issues in both races. So these Darlington numbers aren't going to look super impressive, but if you look at the Dominator points, they're definitely there. He's been able to run up front here, and if you're looking at similar tracks to the ones I mentioned earlier, hard to find a better driver than Kyle Larson, second in Dominator points and first in fast laps. So yeah, we love Kyle Larson this weekend, and I will certainly be building around him. Then we have Denny Hamlin, $10,700, 13.5 over on FanDuel. He's starting in 8th, and he is a very similar play to Kyle Larson. Honestly, they're going to project very similar for me, and as you can see, he's pretty slow in the early run, then got better as the long run progressed, and he too was in that slower group in the second session. So take those numbers for what you will, but I'm assuming he's going to be fast. He was fast last week at Kansas, and I don't see why he wouldn't be strong this weekend once again. So Hamlin will be your tournament pivot off of Larson, but if I'm playing cash games, I will probably roll with Kyle there. Dropping down to the pole sitter, we have Martin Truex Jr., $10,500, 13K over on FanDuel. He's in first, and his odds have kind of shifted quite a bit this week. I think he opened up at plus 850 over on DK, got down to plus 700 with him being on the pole. Maybe he reaches the 6s, maybe even the 5s. I'm not really sure. Guys that qualify well tend to get shifted in the odds quite a bit. So we might see Truex end up being like a co-favorite with Larson or something like that. But similar to the other guys we just talked about, pretty slow in the early run, but then got really good as the run progressed, and he was also in that slower group. These guys are all very similar plays, and honestly, these will be for sure 3 of the cars to beat. I don't think that's a hot take or anything, but as you can see, 6th in the 15 lap, 8th in the 20, and just was pretty strong overall. So I think Martin Truex Jr. will definitely be very solid. Obviously, was great at Dover, super fast at Kansas last week, and overall, he's had a fast car this season, so I don't see any reason not to like Truex, and he's obviously been very, very good at Darlington as well, actually with the best driver rating over the past few years here. So love him, Marty, for sure. And as far as cash games or tournaments are concerned, I'll have to see how ownership falls. I mean, practice and qualifying just ended, so I haven't been able to really run my numbers yet. But I'm assuming Truex will definitely be chalky on the pole, especially with how well he's ran the past couple of weeks. So I'm trying to just kind of guesstimate here, but I do think Larson and Truex will be a very popular combination. But at the same time, there's some other really good plays. But just off the top of my head, if people can fit Larson, Truex, and Chase Elliott together, that might be the most popular way to go. But we'll kind of know more after our projections for people over on the Patreon or on the live stream tomorrow on Sunday morning. All right, dropping to William Byron, $10,300. He's starting in 4th. Actually, I have a bet on him to win this race. He was at plus 1,000 over on Barstool. He did get bet down a little bit, so I do feel good about the number. And with him qualifying well and looking good in practice, I don't think it'll really go up in a negative way for me. But I'm honestly not sure how I feel about it. I don't think he's got a better car than guys like Truex or Larson. There's a couple other guys that look pretty good, but he should be able to compete. And with how good William Byron's been so far this year and good at similar tracks and some of the tire combinations that we're looking at this weekend, he should be strong, and he definitely looks like a fine tournament play as far as the Dominator is concerned, because I don't think the ownership is going to be super high. And if you're looking at practice, he was good all around. Now, he was in the first group, which did have a faster track, it seemed like, but across the board, basically top 3 and everything, and did have the best 10 lap in practice. And honestly, he would have won this Darlington race last year until Joey Logano sent him on the wall, and he finished, I believe, 13th. If I remember correctly, somewhere around there. So I do like Byron. Got a bet on him to win, but as of right now, we'll see. I don't think he's going to have the car to beat, but he should be able to compete with how strong the 24 and the 5 have been all season long. Then Kyle Busch, $10,100. He's starting in 12th. I wish he was a little bit cheaper because I do have quite a bit of interest here. He was in that second group, but overall, he was one of the best cars in that group, and he was great at Auto Club, which is going to be a similar track here to Darlington with the tire fall off, and obviously he was great there, and he has the same paint scheme once again, and that Lucas Oil car looks really, really good. So I think Kyle Busch is definitely going to be in play for tournaments here. With him starting in 12th, he does offer you a little bit of place differential as well. And he was up front last year at Darlington, but don't forget the one race where like half the field wrecked out, and it was pretty much all good cars. So these numbers at Darlington kind of be a little bit skewed. So if you look past that, Busch should definitely be a contender here. So I am liking him in tournaments. Tyler Reddick, $9,900. He's starting in 9th. I'm okay with Tyler Reddick. Obviously ran well at both races here last year, and running around the wall is kind of his specialty. That's where you're going to find the most speed here. And he was fine in practice. I mean, he started off pretty strong here. He wasn't that first group, though, keep in mind. But the long run speed doesn't look as good as some of these other guys, which is slightly concerning. The price is a little bit lower, but to be honest, I think I would prefer guys like Kyle Busch more. I think I prefer Chase Elliott more. Even Ross Chastain looks a little bit more appealing. So Again, I will have to run my numbers, but I might be a little bit lower overall on Tyler Reddick just because of the price point and everyone that's priced around him. I think might have a little bit more upside. It might be a little bit more trustworthy as well. Then we have Chase Elliott here, $9,600. He's starting in 21st. I'll tell you right now, he's going to be pretty chalky, especially over on FanDuel at $10,000. He is going to project very well and will be very easy to fit. And he almost swept practice. You keep in mind he wasn't in the first group, but first, second, first, and fourth across the board in practice. So he's obviously got a good car. And Hendrick is obviously going to bring a ton of speed with how good Larson Byron's been. He was fast last week at Kansas, which he kind of sucked in practice and overall was not very good at intermediates last year. But he had a good car last weekend, so you can't really dispute that. And looks like he brought a lot of speed once again this week, although he did not qualify well. But you have to imagine he's going to be able to move through the field. And he's had some decent runs at Darlington, but again, some skewed finishes, which are going to make this not look very good. But Chase Elliott can definitely compete here. And if you are a believer in narratives, his dad, Bill Elliott, will be in the booth during Stage 3 at Darlington tomorrow, or today whenever you're watching this race. And Chase Elliott's running his paint scheme, so it's going to be hard to imagine him not being a contender. I know it has nothing to do with anything, but just the narrative for you guys to look at, because I'm sure all the folks will be on Chase during that time in the booth. Ross Chastain, $9,400. He's starting in 5th. I think he is one of the better tournament plays on the board. He was very fast at Darlington here last year. Was able to lead some laps, and then I forget what happened, but I just remember him turning, and obviously his day was done. But he's got a pretty fast car. Looks very good in the long run. Top 10 across the board here, but in the long run, top 5 across the board, only behind Kyle Larson in that 30-lap run. So I'm thinking Ross is a pretty good tournament play here, and I'll definitely look to be overweight on him on both sites. Christopher Bell, $9,200. He's starting in 16th, which does look like some good place differential, but to be honest, his car didn't look that great in practice. I like the starting spot. I think he'll be a decent FanDuel play. Obviously on DraftKings, it's pretty similar as far as their pricing is concerned, but I just wish he showed a little bit more speed, but with how good Bell has been this year, and he was good last week. And I'll tell you right now, last week was a week that I felt great about during Stage 1. I think I hit on just about everybody. I mean, I was high on Suarez, Ty Gibbs, all the Toyotas, high on Kyle Larson. Everything was going great. And then just one by one, it started to be a disaster because Ty Gibbs wrecked, Daniel Suarez had issues on pit road, Christopher Bell wrecked. It was a day where I was on top of the world. I felt like I had everything right. And then just one by one, little mistakes kept happening and it killed me. So that was unfortunate. We were on all the fast cars. But what can you do? It's one of those weeks where you move on, and hopefully that doesn't happen again. But I forget why I even mentioned that. I think it's because Christopher Bell was in my head, images of him wrecking. But he was top 5 at Darlington before, should be a top 10 contender, but I'll probably not be super high on Bell just because I feel I can get more downhitter points out of guys like Ross. And Elliott's a pretty similar play in 21st who showed a lot more speed. Joey Logano, $9,000, $9,500 on FanDuel. Imagine he's going to be decently popular over there. He's starting at 15th, and obviously Darlington's been a very good track for him over the years, and last year Darlington, he was absolutely incredible. Has the best average finish here, the 3rd best average running position, the 3rd best driver rating, 3 top 5s, 5 top 10s, which is the most of all drivers. But he brought absolutely nothing this weekend. Ryan Blaney looked fast in practice, but according to practice, Logano was a borderline top 20 car. I realized he was in that slower group, but still wasn't even close to guys like Kyle Larson, Truex, Kyle Busch, all who were in the second group with him. So I'm not a huge believer in Joey Logano here. Just feel like he's going to be kind of stuck around 10th to 15th all day, which it's not terrible, but I kind of want more out of a guy starting in 15th. So I'm not going to be huge on Logano as of right now, I don't think, unless he surprises me in projections, but I don't think that's going to be the case. Then we have Kevin Harvick here starting us off in the 8K range, $8,800, $9K over on FanDuel. Imagine he's going to be pretty popular as well. Like personally, for me, I'd rather play Kevin Harvick. He was in the second group with Logano, and as you can see, it was much faster in the long run, basically cutting his numbers in half there, 11th compared to 20, 13th compared to 22nd, and then 10th compared to 24th. And Harvick, we know he is super good at the tire wear tracks, just great at managing his tires, so I definitely think he's a fine play in any format. Bubba Wallace, $8,600. He's starting in 2nd, and he has a fast car. I mean, obviously looked really good in practice, was in that first group, but he's definitely the ultimate tournament play here because unless he finishes in the top 5 and picks up some fast laps, it's going to be hard for him to pay off. Like, let's just say he doesn't get many dominator points at all. I'm not expecting him to lead. But if he doesn't get like a little chunk of fast laps and finish within the top 5, him finishing 10th is not really going to get the job done at that price point. He's not a complete fade for me, but it is going to be tough to get there. Definitely only a guy I would get to in either 20 or 150 max settings. Ryan Blaney, 8,400 bucks. He's starting at 11th, and I actually don't think he's the worst play. Like, I prefer him over a guy like Joey Logano. They're on the same team, but Blaney showed a lot more speed, and he was also in the second group, so it's not like he had an advantage being in that first one there. Long run didn't look bad at all for him. I know Darlington isn't a very good track for him whatsoever, but 8,400 bucks starting at 11th. Dover's not a very good track for him either, and he was starting in third, and he kind of just stayed there all day. So at that price point, I do think he's worth some consideration. Brad Keselowski, 8,200 bucks. He's starting in 10th. Didn't have an absolute ton of speed in practice, but not too bad at Darlington, obviously. 3 top 10s here, top 5, 4 top 15s. I think him and Blaney are pretty similar plays, but Blaney looks a little bit faster, so I would probably side with him if it was a 1v1 question. Josh Berry, $8,000. He's starting in 23rd, just super bad in practice overall. Not really too impressed with Berry, so I feel like I'd rather get exposure to guys like Blaney and Keselowski, just because I feel like they'll have much better finishing position upside. Dropping down to the 7K range, we have Daniel Suarez, 7,900 bucks. He's starting in 6th. Wasn't very good in practice whatsoever, but did follow it up with a good qualifying run, starting right by his guy Ross Chastain. So we'll see if he's able to hold ground. I don't personally think he's going to be able to. I do think he finishes outside the top 10 here, but worth a look in tournaments just as a pivot option. Looking at the 6 races here recently for Daniel Suarez, top 10, 2 top 15s. If you're looking at similar tracks for Suarez, just have 3 top 10s and 4 top 15s. So numbers are a lot better when you look at that. And a lot of those numbers from Darlington were in some poor equipment. So Suarez is interesting for tournaments, but it's really all about I can say. Ty Gibbs, 7,700 bucks, starting in 13th. A pretty risky play for where he's starting, but does have some decent long run speed in practice, so I don't think he's a terrible play. Obviously, he was very fast last weekend, but took a spin battling out with Truex, and then he tore his car apart coming to pit road too fast. So I'm okay with him in tournaments, but that's really about it. I think I would prefer him over Daniel Suarez personally. Chris Buescher, he'll definitely be the safer option between these two guys that we just talked about. He's starting in 27th. Didn't really have a slow car. I mean, it was top 20, top 15 car across the board, and him starting nearly in 30th. I mean, Brad Keselowski had plenty of speed in qualifying, so we'll just chalk it up as a bad lap for Chris Buescher. So I think he's totally fine. We'll project pretty solid. Ricky Stenhouse Jr., 7,400 bucks. He's starting in 3rd. Not a bad car in practice, obviously. Kind of top 10, top 15 across the board. But for where he's starting, that makes it very difficult to want to roster him. He is better at the steeper tracks, but I don't think it's enough to justify playing him starting in 3rd, so I'll probably pass on him. Although I probably would rather play Ricky Stenhouse over a guy like Chase Briscoe this week, who just looks absolutely awful. Speaking of Briscoe, 31st is slow across the board. I don't really see it working out. I hope people chase the place differential similar to last week, but I don't really have any interest in Chase Briscoe. Austin Dillon, $7,000. He's in 18th. He is somewhat interesting just due to how good he is at high tire wear tracks. If you're looking at the Darlington number specifically, has a top 5, 3 top 10s, and in the top 20 each and every single time the past few seasons. Also an average finish of 12.3. So I don't think he's a terrible turnip play. I know he didn't show a ton of speed, but Kyle Busch looks pretty fast. And just over the course of a long run, I mean, he's been pretty good at managing his tires over the past few seasons. So I think Austin Dillon's not a bad tournament play. I don't think a lot of people will go there. And especially with guys like Eric Jones, who I forgot to talk about, which we will next, and Chase Briscoe, he could be a pretty decent pivot. And if you look right below him, you have Ryan Preece and Dinger all with place differential as well. So I don't mind that as a pivot play. And Eric Jones, 7,100 bucks. He's starting in 28th. Should be pretty chalky, although I guess he's sick this weekend. So we'll see how that affects him. But he's starting in 28th and obviously won this race last year. I don't know how. I mean, it's a very good track for him. But Legacy definitely does not have the speed they had last year. That is for sure. They're moving to Toyota next season. So, again, they're probably just kind of mailing it in. Second in the 1 lap, 7th the 5 lap, and 31st in the 10. I'm going to assume there's just a bad lap that skewed that number. But, yeah, I mean, Darlington's a very good track for Eric Jones. And with him starting all the way back in 28th, probably will be very popular, but I totally get it. But again, that's what I'm saying, that Austin Dillon's really not that bad of a pivot play. Ryan Preece, $6,800. He's starting in 32nd. Just slow, similar to pretty much all the Stewart-Haas cars. Kevin Harvick was better in the long run, but didn't fire off very fast. But going to be tough for me to trust Preece. But if he's like a last piece fit guy just to get some place differential in there and hope he gains some spots, sure, but I'm not excited about it. AJ Allmendinger in 30th. He was slow as well. 8th in the 1 lap, which, sure, that looks good. Then 33rd and 33rd, which probably going to finish not too far off where he's starting, so I don't love that. Justin Haley had a good finish at Darlington last year, but wasn't fast in practice either, so he doesn't look that appealing at $6,500. Eric Almirola slow with all the other Stewart-Haas cars, and he's starting inside the top 20, which is it's just going to make it tough to play him. Michael McDowell, $6,100. He's starting in 19th. Fired off pretty decent. 7th to 1 lap, 11th to 5 lap. Then definitely trailed off a little bit. But Michael McDowell's just one of those guys that can kind of stick around for a while, so I don't hate him. At $6,100 starting in 19th. Same can be kind of said for Eric Almirola, and he's not that bad at Darlington either. He does have 2 top 10s, 4 top 15s, and 5 top 20s. And Michael McDowell's not bad here at all either. I mean, 4 top 20s, 2 top 15s. So I'm definitely fine with either of those two. They look more appealing than some of the place differential plays, actually. And they should be lower owned. Austin Cindric, $5,900. Where I would never have guessed we're getting Austin Cindric this cheap when he first came to the Cup Series. I've definitely thought he was going to be a lot better than this, but he definitely hasn't been very good. But he does have 2 Darlington races, finished out the top 20 both times. And if you're looking at his lap times in practice, not that bad at all. I mean, 5th in the 30, 5th in the 25, 7th in the 20, 10th in the 15. I don't think Cindric's a bad play, and I imagine he's going to pick up a little bit of ownership. Doesn't feel good. I don't think I played Cindric all season long, but this might be the time to do it. Ryan Newman, he's back, $5,100. Really good at tire wear tracks, but when you're having the 51 car, I don't really think much matters. He's going to be slow. He was slow in practice. I don't expect much. People want to play him because he's Ryan Newman, go for it, but I will not be a part of that, especially starting at 26. Gregson, auto fade for me, got punched in the face last week, so it was funny to see. That's for sure. That was a fun time. But I will not be playing him, I don't think. Todd Gillen in 24th. He actually showed some speed in practice, so he's one of the guys I could get to back here starting in 24th. Corey LaJoie as well, 34th. Like, these are the guys that make the multi-dom lineups fit. Todd Gillen, Corey LaJoie, they're definitely my preferred options down in this lower 5K range, and also Austin Cindric pops a little bit as well. Harrison Burton sucks. Ty Dillon and a junker, Brendan Poole, BJ McLeod never need to be rostered ever. And with that being said, that's all I really got for you guys this week. So if you did find it helpful, enjoyable, educational, informal, leave a like down below. And if you thought it sucked, well, I guess you can always dislike it as well. Only hurts my feelings a little bit. But for real, hope to see you guys on the live stream tomorrow around 11 a.m. Eastern. If you want access to all the extra content, you know where to find it. Links down below. And do not forget to check out Prize Picks Underdog. We're both running free scores this weekend for Game 7 of the NBA playoffs. But we wish you all the best of luck, and I'll see you all next time.